Sheriff, you're Sheriff of Durham County.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful parish. Or we call our counties parishes, beautiful county. Is it at least part of your job to protect the public?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You believe that vetting people at the border is racist, do you not?
I'm sorry?
You believe that vetting people at the border is racist, do you not?
No, I've never said that. I believe that having secure borders is important, and we have processes that allow individuals to come into the country the right way. Absolutely.
You believe that people should be able to violate federal immigration laws without consequence?
No, sir, I do not. I believe that anyone who violates federal or state law needs to be held accountable, and there need to be consequences.
You don't believe in cooperating with ICE, do you?
I believe in cooperating with federal authorities, as I do. A number of federal agencies I cooperate with, and I certainly would cooperate with ICE if they would cooperate with me.
Okay. You were elected in 2018, Sheriff, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. On April 18, 2018, you gave an interview with a media organization called Indie Week. Do you remember that?
I'm familiar with the paper, yes.
Okay. Here's what you said. I'm quoting you, your words, not mine. I disagree with the incumbent sheriffs. That's the guy you beat. With the incumbent sheriff's cooperation with ICE. I will make a clear and uncompromising commitment to not cooperate with ICE. As sheriff, I will not honor ICE detainers, and we will not participate in ICE roundups, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In April of last year, you spoke to a group of ICE employees. Do you remember that?
Not particularly, no.
Okay, well, there was an article in a media organization, a media entity called the Assembly. Are you familiar with them? Do you remember?
I've heard of the Assembly, yes.
Yeah, do you remember giving them an interview?
I give several interviews.
Sure.
I actually don't remember that particular one, but I'm...
Okay. Well, here's what you said in the interview, apparently on the record. These ICE employees that you spoke to, you were referencing them, and you said, quote, they, these ICE officials, asked me, so Sheriff, if someone is about to be released from your jail and the detainer is about to expire, you will call us and let us know? What was my answer? You said, no, because that's not what the law says. No, I will not call ICE. End quote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And, sir, Senator, that was before the new law, which is now House Bill 318, which requires me to make that second phone call.
Right. Yeah.
Prior to that, it was not state law, which I follow and all my deputies follow.
Sure.
And so now we do make that second phone call. But ICE agents are notified whenever someone is entered processed into my jail.
Do you need some water? Because I think your pants are on fire.
Okay.
Do you remember a gentleman by the name of Carlos Heriberto Mendoza Martinez?
Not right off, sir, no.
Okay. Sheriff, you should. He was in our country illegally from Mexico. He was in a street gang. Back in Mexico, he was convicted of manslaughter. And he was in your jail. Because in 2021 and 2024, Mr. Martinez was arrested for assaulting a woman and domestic violence. And ICE placed a detainer on this guy because he was in our country illegally. And he was a criminal. And he was in your jail. And you wouldn't honor that detainer, would you?
I can't say that I did not honor the detainer.
I can.
I can say what I did honor was the conditions of the release that were issued by a judge. And so therefore, and once again, ICE was notified that they could come pick up
Do
this
you really
individual.
believe in public safety?
Yes, sir, I do.
You would allow someone in our country, illegally, convicted of manslaughter, convicted of domestic violence, in your jail. ICE says, please hold him when his time is up. We want to get this criminal out of our country. And you said no.
ICE was notified that they could come pick up the individual, and for some reason they did not. And the judge issued the conditions of release. I am a custodian. I do not determine who is released or held. I follow the court's order.
Sheriff, I don't mean any disrespect, but you ought to be ashamed of that. How can you possibly be for public safety if you hate our immigration laws so much that you would let a convicted murderer back on the street? Do you really hate immigration laws that much?
Senator, it's not a matter of that I hate immigration law.
You could have fooled me, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your service. You're now in charge. I got to go vote. Holly is in charge. It's a damn.
The tension between local law enforcement and federal immigration mandates has reached a breaking point, exposing a systemic failure in the concept of public safety. When a high-ranking sheriff stands before a legislative body, the rhetoric of cooperation often masks a reality of ideological resistance. This disconnect is not merely a bureaucratic hurdle. It is a fundamental challenge to the rule of law and the safety of the citizens. The exchange begins with a deceptive simplicity as the sheriff of Durham County affirms his duty to protect the public. He claims to value secure borders and insists that individuals should face consequences for violating state or federal laws. This professional veneer suggests a commitment to a unified legal system where various agencies work in tandem to ensure that criminal elements are removed from the community. However, the analytical gaze must shift from spoken promises to documented actions. The confrontation turns sharp when past public commitments are brought to light. In earlier interviews, the sheriff explicitly stated an uncompromising refusal to honor federal detainers or cooperate with immigration authorities. This creates a logical paradox. An official cannot claim to support law and order while actively dismantling the mechanisms of its enforcement. The specific case of a Mexican national with a history of manslaughter and domestic violence serves as a harrowing case study in this administrative friction. Despite a detainer being placed by federal agents, the sheriff's department prioritized local release conditions over federal immigration holds. This decision allowed a known violent offender to return to the streets, raising serious questions about the hierarchy of safety in the eyes of local leadership. The sheriff's defense rests on the technicality of legal jurisdiction, arguing that he is a mere custodian following court orders. He suggests that if federal agents do not arrive at the precise moment of release, his hands are tied. Yet, this ignores the proactive role of a sheriff in facilitating public safety. Refusing to notify federal partners of a pending release is not a neutral act. It is an intentional obstruction of the removal process. This scenario highlights a disturbing trend where political ideology supersedes the practical requirements of law enforcement. When local officials decide which federal laws are worthy of their respect, the entire concept of a cohesive national policy collapses. The skepticism toward federal overreach is a valid part of the American tradition. But it cannot be used as a shield to protect individuals who have forfeited their right to remain in the country. The broader societal implications are clear and concerning. If a sheriff's primary allegiance is to an ideological stance rather than the physical security of his constituents, the social contract is effectively broken. Public safety requires a seamless integration of intelligence and action across all levels of government. Without this, the system becomes a sieve through which dangerous individuals can pass with impunity. Refusing to honor detainers based on personal or political disagreement turns the jailhouse door into a revolving entrance for career criminals. It sends a message that federal law is optional and that local jurisdictions can serve as sanctuaries from consequence. This does not foster a more compassionate society. It fosters an environment of unpredictability and risk for the very people the sheriff claims to defend. True accountability requires consistency between public statements and administrative policy. As we analyze these confrontations, we must look beyond the calm delivery of a witness and examine the paper trail of their decisions. Reason dictates that the law must be applied equally and that public officials must be held to the highest standard of transparency when their choices directly impact the safety of the community. In a republic governed by laws, the discretion of an individual official should never outweigh the established statutes of the land. When the mask of cooperation slips, we are left with a stark reality of institutional defiance. We must demand a return to the core principles of civil liberty and security, ensuring that political maneuvers never take precedence over the fundamental protection of the public.